All right, here while we go live, waiting for a guest to join us. Here we are. It's week 9. Going live. Live here. We'll start sit if we can right before Thursday Night Football kicks off. We have a special guest who's going to be welcoming a special guest into his life very shortly. So without further ado, let's admit the specialist guest of tonight's podcast. Now, while we wait for this guest to connect their audio, turn on the video. Oh, there we go. That didn't take too long. Happy Halloween, Pooh Bear.
Happy Halloween. I am not Pooh Bear. My wife is Pooh Bear. My dog is Piglet, and I am very obviously the
Tigger.
most fantasy savvy of all the Hundred Acre Wood.
Yeah, is there a little 100 Acre Wood Fantasy Football League that we're not privy to?
No, but we do get into some weird other shit.
Yeah. How's how's your Halloween? Why don't we let's start there. It's
Halloween's good.
Halloween.
We
What's
test
it
drove a Kia today.
test drove a what?
Um, a Kia.
A Kia? Which Kia
Kia.
though?
The EV9, which
Which,
actually is extremely dope.
okay. Okay.
It's like a big three-row EV. But I should be asking you, you're on the other end of the time zones. Your Halloween, I guess you guys were sick. What's been going on with the kiddos with the Halloween?
Yeah, so well we've been battling the flu most of the week. Last weekend the toddler was patient zero, very ill, really ruined, the
Yeah.
nice weather that we had. Um, and then Tuesday, wife and I were basically knocked on our ass.
Love that.
Pretty much was like death on Tuesday. I sound worse than I am. I feel and look better than I sound. Probably the 6 hour depo yesterday and the 2.5 hour depo today didn't
Oh,
help. It's just life, it's work, man. I mean, look, today, I gotta say, the other attorney was a real, you know, real something. So
mhm.
you got to flex those muscles sometimes. It happens. It's not a big deal. It's just part of the deal, part of the job. But we were not going to trick or treat because we've been fighting all this illness. And then we wanted, Adam was, the toddler was feeling much, much better this afternoon. He's ball of energy, run around the house in circles. So I said, okay, let's at least like go do the neighbor's house, go across the street. Didn't even put the costume on. We just put like he was gonna be a fireman, to put like the hat on. So let's just go
Right.
outside with your bucket. He's all excited his pumpkin bucket. And so we did a house or two, and then he saw a bunch of other kids trick or treating. So then it was like almost getting close to
I
bedtime,
want to
and
do what they're doing.
he wanted trick or treat. So mommy took him around and around, and he came back with a whole bunch of candy. And I took the baby in and put the baby down. And so we're, running just a couple minutes behind because bedtime was a little bit later than usual. So we ended up trick or treating, not really kind of what we anticipated, but we're on the upswing. Let me tell you, man, those
Having
little
two.
kid sicknesses, they really knock you back.
I can't even. We're in for it soon. I don't know if Kirshner's on here watching, but I know you're in for it soon too. Um, I'm sure there'll be many, many pods about kid illnesses. Were you the first? Was Richmond the first?
So Bodson was the
Barbara.
first. Bodson had his kid, and then about a month later, Joe had his, and then Tate's was the following January. I was the following July, that July. I was the first to two. Now Joe has two.
No.
So we had our second in April, and then Matt in, I guess what, early July, and
Fourth,
then
baby.
Joe.
4th of
Yep,
July,
and
baby.
there you go. And Joe was August, late July, maybe August, or some around there. Yeah, August. It would have been sometime in early August. So we what do we got? And Tate's is working on number two. Number two is in the oven. Christian's got number one baking away. So do the quick math.
It's going to be a lot of kids in the league.
We're, we're going to be at 10 here by I think the
Almost a
time we get
12
to the
man
Super Bowl.
league. Almost a
I
12
mean,
person league.
it really begs the question: those people without kids, what are they doing?
Being kids.
Yeah,
having
yeah,
fun,
yeah,
living
yeah,
their
right,
lives.
right. They're clearly not practicing enough. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is, right?
I keep getting trades from Paul in the inbox. But anyway, I'm
Oh
probably
my
going to
God.
leave at like the 30 or 45-minute mark. So we should probably tear
Let's
down
get going. We could,
the
I mean, I got a Paul trade too. I don't even know. I mean, at this point, it's like, I don't even know what I
oh,
do with it.
Richmond says chat is being ignored like usual. How do I even view the chat? I'm only on Zoom. How do I
You
view it
got to
on?
go to the YouTube. You got to go to the YouTube address there. Um,
Let's see here.
Richmond like would like us to discuss that we can't put drugs and candy because the wokeness out there. Yeah, I mean, sure, sure.
Hang
I
on.
think I would recommend
Yep.
that he
What's
asks
your
his
fantasy
wife.
football commissioner? I'm already subscribed. So do I have to click to watch it on the YouTube and then mute the sound on YouTube?
Yes, otherwise you're going to have feedback. But what I do is
Hold
when we go
on.
live on YouTube,
I think
I
I went
always
down
send
here.
out. Sure, sure.
Hold on. Hang
I
on.
can,
All right.
my
Yeah.
God.
The YouTube
So
sound
what
is.
I so if you ever watch live, I always send the live link to the group through the group message board.
I
So
saw
you
that.
probably and I
Ignored
always
it.
ask it to email everyone. Yeah, I'm sure most people ignore it. Look, Jacobs would like us to acknowledge that people are traveling, they're living their own lives. He's got 99 problems, but kids aren't one. And
There's a slight
Jacobs
delay.
travels
So
a
I think
lot,
that's about what are people without kids doing. And Jacobs is a perfect
traveling.
example of living a goddamn good life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I get it. Kids are they you
Planning
will
elaborate, planning
they're a
elaborate
succubus.
brewery tour or distillery tours for the rest of us. I'll take it. Saving democracy also, Jacobs.
Is that what people without kids are doing? I
That's
don't
what
know.
Jacob said.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Democracy seems like it's, flaming fire, dumpster rolling down the street. But
Jacobs, I can't be all texting me with no response. I don't see any text from you. When's the last time? Hold on. We're gonna. This is our first controversial litigation of the league. The last time you texted me was October 24th. I think we could make a trade, but I need to wait a week. Lots of movement. Where's my trade, Jonathan? Where's my fucking trade?
it's been 1 week. Wow, one
Yeah,
week since you looked at it.
well,
Pretty bad.
that's the
All
no
right,
response.
so let's air the grievances. Uh, where would you
Airing the
want to begin? Do
grievance.
you want to begin with the Paul trades? I mean, again, the Deontay Johnson trades. I just can't. It's too much. It's too much.
Wait, he has invited me to see if I want to go to what is COSM?
Oh, Cosm looks cool as hell. So that's like a bar where it basically is this total immersive experience, like you're in the stadium, field level, watching like a live sporting event. It
See,
looks really
Jacob,
cool.
I'm sure you invited someone wonderful to this bar, not this guy.
Honestly, you've got about 24 hours before you've lost all of those
Oh,
privileges
the kid
for
is
a
due
long
the day
time.
after tomorrow. There will be no bar. There will be no bar. Anyway, Lowell, yes, you were going to break down the Paul trades. I will defer to you for your hot commissioner take. Commissioner hot
Yeah,
take.
well, I mean, I'm just getting another Paul trade. It's like at some point, and this is what I put in the group chat. I understand Paul wants to trade Deontay Johnson, but his value is now decreased. Number one. Number two is I don't. If I were to acquire Deontay Johnson, this is just me. I can't imagine a situation where I start him. That doesn't mean that there's not a trade out there that I could do with Paul, but I don't think it involves Deontay Johnson. I would rather trade with somebody and trade away a player that I may start, may not. Deontay Johnson is never, I'm said outside of injuries and just by Mageddon going to end up in my starting lineup. It's just not going to happen. Not on an inconsistent passing offense where he's not the number one target with a quarterback who his first option is to run, his second option is to run, his third option is Zay Flowers, his fourth option is Mark Andrews. Where does Deontay
Yeah,
Johnson figure
if
into that?
Mark Andrews isn't even his third option. And
Right.
I would also say that on a team, on the 1-7 Albuquerque ass monglers, where Deontay Johnson is in the flex, I don't know where on a roster for the rest of us he has a role. I don't think it's using Paul's lineup here as a point of reference. You're not in a really strong selling position when you have to say Well, he's no Tyler Lockett.
It's just a really tough spot.
Yeah.
So, I do think, what's your take on tonight's game? Texans minus 2.5, or Texans plus 2.5 at the Jets. Seems like Vegas wants you to take the Texans on the road underdog, short week. They're down to one receiver. What are your thoughts?
So for me, I think plus 2 point, right, it's plus 2.5 for the Texans. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
I actually think that's right. And first of all, the Jets the Jets are just sorry in advance to Jonathan. They're the same fucking Jets they've always been. They suck. They just have Aaron Rodgers now, but they still suck. So the thing that for me makes the Texans the pick for tonight is, yeah, they're down the two-star receivers. That may mean some double coverage on my current receiver too, Tank Dell. But he's extremely fast on the long ball. And I'm a little concerned. I would be concerned if I were the Jets that they have a running game plus CJ Stroud himself on the Texans who won't allow them to play that deep coverage that they need to play to cover Tank Dell. If they're trying to put man or even double on him, that could start to peel away options in the running game that we've seen the Texans exploit all season.
Yeah, I would expect Joe Mixon to have a good night. I just think this feels like Vegas is trying to bait you to take the Texans, which to me says take the Jets, which I hate. And I have no confidence in that. But I would say take the Jets minus 2.5 because if you can bracket coverage on Dell, it's not a lot else you got to worry about. If you can limit Stroud's ability to throw touchdown passes, you got a 50-50 shot of winning this game. And
Yes, I
Texans
agree.
pass defense is very exploitable. I do think it's a Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Tyler Conklin, Alan Lazard type of game because they're just
It
going to
would
spread you
have
out and they
been,
might as
I
well
think,
throw.
for two out of those four, it would have been their type of game if they were like 2 or 3 years faster. I think Devontae Adams is still like a really good trade for the Jets to have made, but he's not Devontae Adams from 2 or 3 years ago in terms of speed and agility. I do think those other guys you mentioned, he's better than Conklin. I don't know. I think there's a real even matchup here. And I actually think that Texans have the edge on the quarterback matchup.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. There's a lot of edges that point to Houston. But quickly here, should I start Devontae Adams this week? Right now he's on the bench, and I feel like he has to stay there until he does something good. But it's a tempting matchup from a statistical standpoint when you look
Paul
at
says
metrics and
Alan
rankings.
Lazard is hurt. I was not aware of that.
Well, it doesn't matter. He's the number 3 or 4 option in their passing game. It's just the point of
Oh,
the
he's
Texans'
IR.
pass defense is very exploitable, and so it's the kind of game where the casual fan takes Houston because they know that it's Houston and they just know the name and CJ Stroud and they look at records. That's why I think it's just a bad line. It's a stinky line, as some would say, a rat line. I just feels like why is Vegas trying to bait me to take Houston? So I would lean Jets.
Paul
So
is
that's just me.
blowing up the chat almost unilaterally. Some
Maybe
nice.
that's why people don't want Paul in the chat because he
I mean, I was
monopolized it.
having fun being an absolute troll last week, so uh, why don't let's do this? And I know you had mentioned we should do hot like roster lineup assessment live in the chat. Let's indulge Paul for 3 minutes here
Sure.
and go through your own lineup. Who would you trade and who would you keep if you had your way?
For
And what would
me,
you
just
trade
in
for?
general, just
For you on your lineup. Yeah, and then I'll do the
yeah.
same.
I mean, look, I think in here I can.
I'm opening your lineup now. I have to look on the standings ranking though under mine. I'm not used to that yet. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting very used to it. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to find your lineup first. So go
That's all
ahead.
right. I felt bad for Evan. I had to give him a win last week.
I can't
He,
believe Richmond won. We'll get to that in a minute.
yeah, yeah. So look, here's my lineup. Uh, I mean, I'm not going to trade away Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels, quarterback position. Not a chance. I'm going to move one of those. Not going to move Saquon. Um, James Cook is. overall been fairly good. It'd be hard to move him. I would trade James Cook. I do think there's value there. It's a very run heavy offense, but they have enough weapons now with Cooper where the box shouldn't be super heavy. I do think there's value in moving him, and I would consider that. King Hunt to me is an expendable piece. I think he's until Pacheco is back, that's a player that I'm glad I acquired because he's useful. But he's
Who
averaging
has
15 points a week.
who
That's
has that
very
other
good.
backup running back from the Chiefs? Garendo. Who has him?
Well, that's on the 49ers, but I don't. I mean, I don't want any part
Oh,
of. I mean, I already have Mason and
my brain is
McCaffrey, so I
failing
don't
me.
want any other part of that backfield. But Kareem Hunt to me is, look, he's averaging 15 points a week. Until Jacobs back, that's a starting running back right there, and they're just pounding the rock with him. So I would be tempted. I don't need the moon for him. Garrett Wilson, look, the way he's played the last 2 weeks with Devontae Adams in town, sign me up. That's a top 10 must start. That's a hard player to move. Although I don't think I'm married to any receiver. You know,
Yeah.
some people derogatory, were very negative about Marvin Harrison, called him Mazda Marv the other week. Well, then he went off. So Maserati Marv is back in my good graces.
Maserati Marv.
I don't know that I love him starting him every week, but again, none of my receivers I'm married to. Jaden Reed, hot start to the year, but if there's no Jordan Love, it's hard to want to start him. T. Higgins, when healthy, is a target hog for the Bengals. He's got to stay healthy, which is his
You're
problem.
gonna pick up a kicker?
Yeah, I don't know. Haven't decided yet. I'm not real worried. I'm not going to drop Boswell. So it's not really something I want to do. I'll play without a kicker. I've done it a lot of times. I'm not a traded defense guy. I'm hoping Goddard plays this week, so I don't have to try to figure out what to do with tight end because I picked him up for the sole purpose of using him this week. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm really open to moving. Not McCaffrey, not Barkley, not the quarterback. Pretty much anyone else, I'm open to listening to. I just think
When do you think
I'm.
McCaffrey comes back?
I think next week.
You think next week, not the week after?
No, all the word is that everyone's been eyeing the Tampa game after the bye. I would be. I think it's hard because we don't really know. They don't have to really give a lot of updates. We know that he's been progressing well. He's doing some work on the side all by himself. They don't have to say anything until they definitely open the window to return, and they're not going to do that until they absolutely know for sure. So I think it'll be next week. Either way, I'm not real concerned for my team. I think it'll be in the next week or two, but all signs point to next week. So we'll have to see. But I would expect a slow first week back and then full speed after that. I don't think they waste any time ramping him up.
I'd like to throw this one out there for the chat to discuss as we move on. Uh, is Lowell's team a fundamentally different contender in this league after McCaffrey gets back, or are there other features of his team, like possibly Kareem Hunt losing some value over time, tight end problems as usual, gonna even out Lowell's performance through the rest of the year? So I'm very curious for the rest of the league. Um, do they see Lowell as an increasing threat after McCaffrey gets back, or does it wash out? I'm
Yeah, I don't
curious.
know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that question either. I think you have to wait and see. The Ayuk injury, I think, helps in some respects, hurts in others. Overall,
Yeah,
I think the Niners being in a really competitive playoff race because they're struggling out the gate, lost a couple games they should have won, means that he's almost more important to keep healthy, but also to perform at a high level.
I feel the
So
same way about Debo. To switch over to my
yeah,
own roster for a second,
hmm
where am I here?
we're looking at it.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I, I
I'm on the
look,
actual.
I get that he's your namesake, but you got to admit, rolling with Mahomes at this point is a
So
risky proposition.
if you'll notice, I have no longer been rolling with Mahomes
I
in terms
know.
of strategy. I find now, and it's a hard thing to admit almost, balancing out the rest of the schedule looking forward, Goff and Mahomes sort of alternate favorable matchups, and I'm playing those matchups. I'm just going to put it out there right now. I will not be keeping Mahomes this year. If anybody's licking your chops to pick him up next year, have at it. I kept him because he was I think, fourth round keeper, fifth round keeper, and he was worth it at that round. He is not the player he was when I named my team. And there have been actually more weeks this year where Goff, I have benched him and he has blown Mahomes' score out of the water.
Well, I think with Goff, if he's playing at home or in a dome, that's got to be like a must start.
He's
The
just
career splits for Jared Goff in a dome
yeah,
is it's insane. Now, to be candid, kind of would think that you'd be looking around who's got an extra quarterback that I might be
yeah.
able to trade for because it's not that Goff is bad, and he certainly has big weeks, but he's got some meh weeks mixed in.
As
And
Mahomes,
Mahomes
most of
is
his weeks have been
well,
meh.
Mahomes for the last basically year of games has really been just kind of whatever. Look,
Yep.
he's the 21st quarterback
Healthy
on the year,
too.
and well, yeah, well, Kelsey's a whole separate conversation. I think with Mahomes, it's just they're from an identity perspective, they're a different team. They're
Yep.
not a big throw offense. They are a
Not a big committee,
defense
offense
first. Yeah,
receivers.
they're a right. They're a bunch of no-name receivers, defense first, run first, and it works. But
It's
it is
winning.
not
They're in the
fantasy
lead right
friendly.
now. They're in the Division
Yeah.
One right now.
Well, okay, but that the division is a separate
City
conversation,
division.
right?
Yeah.
So moving through your roster, walk us through it. When are the players you know that you would say you're open to the conversation? No one's going to commit. No one's going to hold you to it. I
Yeah.
assume Tank Dell you're not married to, but I'm sure CD Lamb you don't want to move.
CeeDee Lamb has
How
been kind of keeping me propped up throughout the season. I'm not moving him.
yeah.
I'll tell you, my two starting running backs, Jacobs and Mixon, they have been workhorses for me throughout the season. And if you look, I'll be super candid, the position, because I'm definitely being, top three uh currently standings. Four, I think. Am I number four right now? What am I right
Well,
now?
I think if we were to do seeding, you would
Three.
be four.
Seeding
Well,
four. Overall,
r-
overall, three.
yeah.
Um, so with that being the case, I'm a buyer, and if anyone out there is looking to salvage next season before, the prices drop, um, Jacobs and Mixon have been carrying my team from a consistency standpoint when Mixon hasn't been hurt. I want to point out that at the beginning of the season, including in my one loss of the season, Mixon was hurt, and now he's healthy again, and Jacobs is kind of waffling. I think he's okay. But I don't have any depth at running back. DeAndre Swift has been better than I expected. If you look back throughout the season, he had a couple of dud games, but overall, he's been the last 4 weeks, he's cleared at least about 19 points per game. Um, but other than that, I have no real running back depth. So my strength on my roster, if I were ever to sell, which I don't think I'm in a selling season, uh, are receivers. I got CeeDee Lamb. Tank Dell's playing right now, and because he kind of has to be with Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs and that whole situation, and that's why he's in my lineup right now. But if you look on my bench, my two best receivers statistically are Debo and DJ Moore. I just picked up Demarcus Robinson mostly as a get to keep other people from picking him up off waivers last week. He's not good. I just have him he's a throwaway. But DJ Moore and Debo are receiver ones. Like when Caleb Williams is not a piece of shit, and in every game so far this season, he's basically been a piece of shit. So for receivers, so that's why I chose to bench DJ Moore this week. I am nervous that that may come back and bite me in the ass. It was either him, DeAndre Swift, or Tank Dell. I couldn't justify benching Tank Dell when he's the only choice, and he's catching from CJ Stroud. DeAndre Swift has put up such good numbers every week for the last 4 weeks. It's always risky in our league to have a running back in the flex, but he's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the problem, look, you could always upgrade at quarterback. Is it essential? Maybe not, but it's definitely what we would call a need. You have no depth at running back. You got three. Now they're all starting level, so
Yeah.
you're not, you know, eh, you're at a point where if at least two are healthy, you're okay.
Yep.
But it's definitely not the position you want to be in, right? Just in a perfect world, I do think you're the kind of team where, for example, if Takedale has a huge game tonight, you're probably turning around going, "Hey, but what can I move him for?" Because you know you might want to
Tank
capitalize.
Dell,
So,
if anyone out there wants a starter quality receiver, especially over the next few weeks, if those games for you and your schedule are important, Tank Dell is on the block. DJ Moore might even be on the block. I fully accept that he's not like worthy of a tier one running back right now because he's catching from Caleb Williams, but he's damn worth a tier two running back or better. I'm talking somebody who's getting 15 points a game consistently. Um, because he is one of the best running backs in the wide receivers in the league. He's just catching from a inconsistent rookie quarterback who is not as good as everybody made him out to be in college. Um,
well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of, you know, yeah,
Another
NFL
possible start.
quarterback scouting is, that's a whole separate conversation. I think, if your team is strong, you've got certainly good quality depth, where you need it, and
I will say
it
another
comes down to the
possible
margin.
something that could make a interesting trade for someone. The position this year that has been hit the most for all of us, where you either have a rock star or a complete zero on your team, has been tight end. And I will give myself a little credit, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. I picked up Tucker Kraft on waivers like 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. And he has been an absolute he's ranked in Flea Flicker as a number three tight end in the league. He's actually ranked above Kyle Pitts, who's number four. I have both of those tonight, or not tonight, Sunday. I think Kyle Pitts has a better matchup with the Cowboys. So I'm starting him over Tucker Kraft at the Lions. I'm sorry, Lions at Green Bay. Um, because I think it's tough to play at Lambeau as a receiving player, especially a tight end. Um, but either Kraft or Pitts could be an interesting part of a trade option for that tier one running back if anybody wants it.
Yeah, I mean, tight end is definitely a premium position. It's a very scarce one this year, and so it's definitely one of those where, yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good asset to have.
Yeah.
So,
Let's talk about some of the matchups this week if you want to. Oh, hang
yeah,
on.
more than happy to. More than
I
happy
see
to.
Wagner has the tightest of ends. I have a double E tight end at this point on my roster.
Which matchup would you like to begin with this week? We've got,
The week going ahead or the past week?
well, Trevor, you want to look back to last week? We certainly can. We've definitely got
I
some
think there's
interesting.
exactly one matchup that is really interesting from this past week, and that is Richmond and Emmanuel. Knowing that there is 100% certainty that Emmanuel's definitely taking the time to watch this live, or watch it at
Well,
all. I think pulling up Richmond and Manny's matchup from last week is absolutely insane. I was watching this matchup live because it really matters in the Leos division how many or how uh Richmond does. Um and I was when Manny went ahead early, it was shot he went ahead by a decent amount early. And then it came down in the very last game, the Monday night game, to the Steelers defense. And I was like, God damn, if you look back at the Steelers defense over the whole season, the points that they've scored, he needed, what was it, like at least 10? I think he needed 10 point something to win at that point. I was like, man, more often than not this season, they've done it. And then they fucking did it.
yeah, well, I mean, the Steelers
That
have
weird.
delivered big double-digit points just about every week outside of that weird game with the Colts. And yeah, I mean, he needed 13 and change, and they got 14 and change, and he won by about a point.
That was
Remarkable.
wild. I mean,
It,
I was offering Emmanuel trades going into that matchup to say, hey, look, I'm playing Paul. That's a gimme. Sorry, Paul. And Paul knows that. And like, what can I give you in exchange for intermediate term value for me to boost your lineup? I was really flush with receivers. I thought maybe Thomas or White were worth trading. Looking back, I don't know that there's anyone he had to trade. But Emmanuel's takeaway was that he didn't want to because of long-term keeper value. And I can't argue with that. Kyron Williams is who I wanted, but he's like a 15th round keeper next year.
Yeah, I was having conversations with Manny, about his team and he's got sort of three keepers or keeper options, if you will, Kyron and Puka and Brian Thomas. I was sitting there, the Thursday night game is going on, and I'm like, well, I think Kyron and Puka made the decision for you.
Yeah.
If when healthy, they're both just going to be 20
Be
point guys. I mean, and you're getting them at 15th round. It's I mean, it's a no-brainer. It doesn't matter if someone is potential to be a number one receiver on another team. I mean, the way the Rams offense operates with those, short throws to Puka and Kyron,
all
just
the
getting all
time.
the goal line work. I mean, I told me this.
Kind of a no-brainer.
Whether you trade Brian Thomas or not, I don't think you have any choice to make when it comes to keepers. So it's sort of in your hands if you decide you want to move Brian Thomas because there's
100%.
no. I mean, unless somebody's giving you multiple like first round picks, why would you trade a Puka away? I just can't see that. So I was definitely having similar conversations with him because it's one of those where it's like, look, your team's not doing well. You got a surplus of good, cheap talent. Let's make a deal. And then you kind of watch it play out. You go, yeah, no, not a chance, not a chance should you do that. And to Manny, I'm sure he doesn't watch live, but this is in podcast form on an Apple podcast or Spotify. He could listen on the train or on the metro going to work. He's
100%.
welcome to do that. So here we go. Turning the page this week. Any particular matchups you want to focus on? We've got that are big. Certainly, you're playing La Magna. That's a
That
big
to me is
matchup.
that's a big decisive matchup for the week for the league broadly. You also have Jonathan playing Richmond. If he can pull that out, the
Yes,
I
that's
wouldn't say the odds are good for Jacobs. Um, I see a cue here by Alvin Kamara. What's the deal with him?
He'll
It's
probably just miss practice or something.
oh, okay. Um, yeah, my matchup with the Magna is a big one for who's like a deep playoff threat. I think I mean shoot, I'm looking I don't know that he's going to be a consistently winning team every week, but I'm looking at Emmanuel against Bodson thinking can he get there and do to Bodson what he almost did to Richmond last week, you
Yeah,
know?
well, I think it's one of those where, as we see, it's fantasy football. Anything can happen. You start the wrong guy or someone gets hurt. Look, Manny's team has more than enough talent to win on any given week
He's got a
because
who do you
he,
pick problem.
right. Well, but more importantly with Manny is Puka Nacua missed. He's basically missed 2 months.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what Manny's team looks like at full strength because we saw it for 1 week and Puka got hurt week one.
I
Everyone
relate
else,
to
we
that
haven't had
with
a
the
chance.
Richmond.
Right. So it's the kind of thing where, look, he's got Kyron, he's got Puka. Those by themselves can really help carry a team if the Rams offense is having a good day, and you think they would. Let's see what the weather's like on Sunday in Seattle, but if that's a shootout, that helps Manny because he's got Kyron Williams, he's got Geno Smith, he's got Puka. That could be a lot of points. Rashad White, he's got to get the ball at least part of the time. You never know, can find the end zone. Ridley looked like a god for 1 quarter last week. You don't know if that can continue. Kate
And
Otton's come
then
out
he
of
got old
nowhere.
again.
Right. Well, it's Calvin Ridley. He turns into a pumpkin eventually.
Right.
So you just don't know. And on the other side, for Bodson, Bodson's got a really, really strong team.
I mean,
And
is the number one team in the league as far as I'm concerned. I think most of
yeah,
us agree. But
from a
you
power
have
rating
had
perspective, but you never know. You
you
never
do
know.
have, he's got Baker Mayfield playing against the Chiefs defense. That could go any number of ways. On the other side of the ball in that same game, Bodson has Travis Kelce. Yes, it's against the Bucks, and I think that is a favorable matchup. But Kelce in general this year is like more interested in doing fucking Doritos commercials and traveling around the world to Eras Tour stops than to playing football.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger question, right? Like I think I don't think Travis retires this year, but I don't think he makes it to the 2026 season, right? Forget on-field performance because he'll say I'm still having fun and I'm out here to win games and stuff. But he said before many times that when he feels like he doesn't have the same step, he'll want to go. I do wonder how much of, I mean, the both of them are really capitalizing on their 15 minutes here, proverbially, and
Yeah.
I do wonder if there's a desire to kind of let this go on as long as possible. The reality is, they have a very popular podcast, but if both of them are no longer in the league, I don't know how popular the podcast becomes, right?
Yeah, well, and I think even aside from the podcast, I think they're going to become in a way almost like like Jerry Rice recently in the in the food commercials. They're trying to become, at least Travis is trying to become like a crossover celebrity where he's like famous for being famous. And
Yes,
there's been other
yes, that's
NFL
very
players that
good
have
way
done
to
it.
put it.
And I think he's doing it. He's in a TV show starting later this year, one of those
Yep.
like horror American Horror Story something. I think it's on Prime. Um, he's dating Taylor Swift. Oh, Catherine just walked by outside the doorway of this room, and in the crack of the door, she said, "No, it's not on Prime. It must be on something else." Um, she works at Prime.
Well, American Horror Story is an FX
Paul
show, which
says Paul says they are undefeated. Travis is living the dream. They are winning, but he's not
I mean,
pushing.
look, I don't begrudge them capitalizing or making the money that they can make when they can make it. Like I don't begrudge anyone
Oh, I
for
don't
that.
begrudge it.
To me, I mean, to me, it's just I just wonder, like, what are we, talking about in terms of how long is that viable once they're like for some of the things, right? You don't
Yeah.
really see former players other than Gronk
I
hang
think you're
around
trying
and
to get
still
into
do
that
a lot
growth
of endorsements. And I think it's sort of like a different version of Gronk. That's what kind of
or
Travis
Shaq,
is.
like Shaq from the NBA.
Yeah, but Shaq has done. I mean, Shaq like legitimately. Shaq does like DJ appearances. He's obviously the NBA and TNT stuff. I mean, look, Travis will end up on Fox or something. He'll end up on one of these football shows. He'll be brought in when he's done. I just there's so much content and there's always new content coming. I just wonder at what point do this sort of the zeitgeist move on? Does it say like,
Yeah.
okay, I've had enough? Because a lot of their talk is about the Chiefs and about the Eagles. Well, like if you're not both playing, that kind of loses some of its relevance. They don't spend a ton
Right.
of time. I mean, they talk about their lives and things. And look, I think it's great. I would do the same thing if I were them. Take every endorsement you can, make all the money, bank it. They should do that, especially if you're someone like Jason, who before the last couple of years, nobody would have thought would have had any post playing entertainment career.
None.
So
Yeah,
you should capitalize where you can.
I
That's
agree.
but
But that's
yeah.
kind of a deep dive on Manny and Bodzen's matchup.
Yeah,
I
we
think
got way in the weeds there.
we did.
Way in the
I
weeds.
think in general, in most games this season, Bodzen has the edge. I think he has the edge on the championship, for the year. But as with the playoffs and the championship, in every game you don't know. And in this particular um, league scenario that we're in, I'm going to the standings right now. Where are we here? Standings. Bodzen is currently, where are we at here?
Dobson's a game up on Lamagna, but he's got a
Tied with
90,
both
almost
Richmond
90
and
points, almost 90 more points scored. So we're starting to get to that point of the year. We're just past the halfway mark where points scored really starts to matter. There's not a lot of time to start making up ground.
I
You
also
can
think
make
though,
up a little bit, but it's hard over unless you really have a big upturn and improvement to make up a lot of ground there. And that's a big tiebreaker.
but points
Uh,
for is also one of those that can be so volatile in a given week. There was a
of
week, and
course.
I regrettably missed the pod that week. There was a week like 3 weeks ago where most of the games, with one or two exceptions, were like, decided on a score of like 85 to 75 or something like that. There were like four different games under 100 points for the winning team. a couple weeks ago. And as a result, and I won that week, but my points for was way low. I'm still about 60, I'm 62 points below you right now, even though I'm a game above you in
Hmm.
record.
Hmm.
But I'm only 20 points off of Richmond in points for, and we have the same record. So my point there is not my own team. It's that in any given, like I scored 150 points last week, Jacobs scored like 145. Your points for can be very volatile, and one big week can make a huge impact.
No, it certainly can. I think we're getting to the point where you start to see, more or less some consistency. But I agree, there can be big shifts still. It's not like nobody can make up the ground that they need to make up, but you can make up 20 points in a week. Very doable. We got 6 more weeks to go before the playoffs, so it's the question of, let's say you got to make up 80 points, right? How many big swings are going to happen in your favor? So you
Right.
can make up little differences. It's harder to make up the bigger differences, and not that you
We're
can't,
not, I
right?
think we're close. I think we're almost at
We're
that.
almost we're getting
Yeah.
close to the tipping point, right? Like I think there's still enough time to do it, but in about 2 or 3 weeks, we're gonna look up and go, all right, you're probably not going to catch this person for, let's say, if you needed to use that as a tiebreaker, you're not going to be able to do it, right? So you kind of start to see that we're not quite there, but and maybe again that's why I talk about all the way back earlier, a month ago of once you start to see some of that, that might indicate, hey, my team's not very good. Maybe I should be a seller early, right? I just think that can influence some of those decisions of how do I assess my own team and my own needs in comparison to the field around me, not as a
It's
full
fascinating
judgment,
that
but
you
as a
bring
data
that
point.
up. It is
Mhm.
fascinating that you bring that up, and it's exactly what I was hoping to talk about with you today, because we have such a weird, looking back at the standings again. I'm looking at the league on my own screen here. Um, because of that big fat bunch around the middle. You know, Kirshner has a good team this year, but he's 4-4. That's getting further and further back from his division and from being able to make the playoffs on his record. You know, Eric is 3-5. You know, Jacobs is only going to be able to make the playoffs if he wins his division. And then obviously nobody in Bodzen's division except maybe LaMagna if he beats me this week. Bodzen's going to win that division unless LaMagna makes a big move. So my point being, with such a glut of teams with realistic playoff hopes, but there's only 6 spots, I think this is the latest in the season we have seen nobody really break and become a seller except for Paul, who's kind of like, in terms of salespeople, not politicians, he's like the Donald Trump of our league. He's like, buy my shit, buy my shit. It's so gold. It's so amazing. Oh,
Oh, you
buy
don't
my
want to call the trade.
apartment
You don't want
shit.
to call the trade offers garbage.
You all know it's a floating, Paul's trade offers are a floating island of garbage. And
Wait, wait,
and
wait, wait. Are you calling them Puerto Rico?
I'm calling it a floating island of garbage.
Okay, okay.
You Republicans
All
can
right.
call it whatever you want.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Tony Tony Hinchcliffe is not on the podcast. Is not a guest, no, a former guest or a future guest, to be clear. It's
But
certainly been a wild week in politics. That's for
oh man,
sure.
without putting anything on the internet that I don't want on the internet, I would just say as an observer and a news consumer, it has been more questions than answers for me this week.
Oh well, of course. I mean, you know, we live in the strangest simulation. That's for sure. It's just beyond.
Whoever's running the simulation is having a
Yeah,
ball.
yeah,
Having
they're
a ball.
having a ball. They're
The
definitely having a
Sims
ball.
are
So
being put in weird circumstances at this point.
yeah. So let's land this plane here. You're gonna have to go scare little kids with your
I have a tail that is
possible.
going to be
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna be scaring kids with your tail while you try to give them candy. That's
yeah,
okay. Let's land the plane this way. You're, let's say, 48 hours from having your life changed
give or take,
forever,
maybe a week.
give or
Who
take.
knows?
Right. Well, you know, I mean, right. Give or take soon, imminently. How you feeling?
Really good. I'll turn my screen around. I'm sitting in our comfy chair now in the
Uh,
baby room. So we're all ready to book some toys and shit over there. There's clothes in there. Uh, we're feeling good, but that was a lot of motion for those watching at home. Apologies. But it's funny because I've been off for a month already on just pure vacation time. I saved up so much
Wow.
vacation last year that I had about a month of use or lose leave that I had to use. So I have been. And then I haven't even cracked, like, if I use no more after next week, I will still start next year with the maximum that I can end next year with. So I basically have to use at least another 2 or 4 weeks more vacation without even the 12 weeks parental leave that the government gives. Um, so it's weird. We've been calling it we tired mint. Uh,
Yeah.
we tired mint, but we're not really that tired yet because no kid yet.
Ha, just you wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure
That's the
kids
thing.
are plates.
That's the thing that no matter what you do to prepare, no matter how physically prepared you think you are, or you are, because you've got all the stuff in the room ready and this, it's just different. And the first 2 weeks are a blur of exhaustion because the baby's up all the time, and so your sleep is all over the place. And eventually, as they get it figured out, you get it figured out, and you'll start to get your sleep back over time, and you'll find a routine and a schedule, and that rhythm will come. Um, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I mean, for as exhausting as it is, it's amazing and it's great. And I know that everyone in the league and everyone here in my home, and I'm sure all of their homes, is thrilled and excited for you guys. It is
And for
a
Kirshner.
wonderful thing. And for Christian Miller,
Yeah.
we're going to try to have him on, of course, before his bundle of joy comes. And
Act
you
soon.
know
Act now. To put it in the terms that Trump and or Paul Biedlingmeyer would use, act now. Bye, bye,
wait,
bye.
which Paul Bielema, one, two, or three?
Oh, well, that's true. The three, of course. PB3. PB3.
PB3.
I think the initials, maybe this is a topic for another podcast on another day. The initials mean you have to ultimately become the Georgetown basketball coach. That it can't get any worse, dude.
It's a good point.
Can't get
You know, we'll see. We'll see. No, it's incredible. What I would say is lean on everyone around you. Whether it's family who's close by, or friends, or even any of us who have been through it. No question is too small or too big or at the
Thank you,
weird enough
man.
hour. I'll tell you what. The toddler key. I'm up at all hours of the night sometimes with the toddler. Right? So I don't mind a phone call, or certainly, a text message here and there. Hey, you're going to be so many things that you have no clue. And just know everybody's been there before, and we all have no idea. And you make it through it. And it's going to be, you know, it's, it's, it's a complete 180, but it is, nothing beats it. I wouldn't go back to 2 years ago. It's
You might
just,
go back to 10 years ago. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, look, yeah, I would love to be able to sleep in and not be able to do what I want on the weekend or something, sure. But at the end of the day, life goes on, life matures and changes, and you're going to be wonderful. Catherine's going to be wonderful. So we'll
Excited,
land the
man.
plane there. We're excited for you. Please keep everybody in the loop. Just, we don't need minute by minute, but I'm sure everybody's rooting for you. We'll send you a little something here to help with the diapers that you're gonna get
I
real
think
used to.
if and when we eventually move to DC, which is still the hope and the plan, we will be like, probably because of that July November gap, will be like a school year behind Evelyn Lamagna. So that's cool.
Well, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's like wild because here, so we have like friends whose kids are, I don't know if I think September 1 is the cutoff here. No, maybe not. Maybe it's August something. Anyway, but we
Yeah.
have friends whose kids are like September, and Adam is end of July, and they're different. I mean, they would be completely different school years.
Yeah.
unless they decide to like move up, right? When so it's kind of wild. You don't really ever think about that. Like it's just not something that comes up, and then you make friends, and then you're going to like daycare or something, and it's oh wait, but Johnny's in a different
Ah,
class. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Because well, because his birthday is September, and you're you know. Um, like I said, all the weird things that you never had to deal with or think about.
yeah.
So anyway, like I said, we wish you the best. Thanks
Thanks
for
for thanks for
we
having
went
me
a little long.
on.
We went a little long today for everybody.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Whoopsie.
no, no, no. That's
You
okay.
guys
We
go trick
thank
or
you.
treaters yet, so it's starting.
Right. There you go. Hopefully you get a lot, or in our case, you're pretty soon you'll have a child running around bringing home the candy for you, which I'm
Hell
very
yeah.
thrilled for. Very
Yeah.
thrilled. So
Put it in our bucket. All right.
exactly,
Honey
exactly.
pot.
All right,
All
Tigger,
right.
you have a good one.
Yes, sir. And farewell to the league. Good luck in your matchups this week.